For years, BYD looked unstoppable. It rose from a battery company into a global electric vehicle giant, challenging even Tesla at the top. Investors called it the future, governments backed it, and its value surged toward the trillion-dollar mark. But behind the rapid growth, one bold decision, some would say arrogant, started to change everything. A bet so big that if it fails, it could bring down the entire empire. To understand BYD's downfall, you first need to understand the man who built it, because the same obsessive, reckless confidence that created this empire is the exact same force now threatening to destroy it. Wang Chuanfu was born into a poor family of 8 children in the inland Chinese province of Anhui. He was orphaned as a teenager, raised by his elder brother and sister, and propelled himself through education and relentless hard work. He studied metallurgical physical chemistry, specialized in batteries, and in 1994 read a news report that would change his life. Japan had pledged to stop producing nickel-cadmium batteries for environmental reasons. Wang saw a gap in the global supply chain. He saw an opportunity, and he moved. In February 1995, Wang gathered a team of 20 people and founded BYD in Shenzhen with 2.5 million Chinese yuan of capital, about $350,000 in today's money. No factory, no brand, no patents, just a deep understanding of how batteries worked and an absolute conviction that he could reverse engineer anything the Japanese had built, then make it cheaper and better. Starting with just 20 employees, BYD studied Japanese-made batteries from Sony and Sanyo, then found ways to improve their designs and cut costs. By the early 2000s, BYD was supplying batteries to Motorola, Nokia, and Samsung. It had become China's largest rechargeable battery manufacturer. Then Wang made his next move, the move that everyone thought was insane. In 2003, BYD acquired 77% of a struggling automaker called Qinchuan Automobile. Funds dropped the upstart, and BYD's share price sank by 30% in the first 3 days of the announcement. Deutsche Securities saw 4 unfavorable factors. Cars were not related to BYD's main business. BYD bought in at too high a price. Qinchuan was not competitive, and BYD stocks were tarnished by the risky move. Wang did not care. He had seen further than the analysts. If batteries were going to power the future of transportation, then the company that controlled the battery needed to control the car. He was not buying a broken-down automaker. He was buying a platform to industrialize the future. BYD's first vehicle, developed in-house, the BYD-F3 sedan, looked remarkably like a Toyota Corolla. When it came out in 2005, the compact vehicle sold more than 1 million units, going on to be a hit with Chinese consumers and validating the company's copy and localized approach. In 2008, Wang made his most theatrical move yet. During a factory tour designed to impress potential investors from Berkshire Hathaway, determined to demonstrate the safety of his lithium iron phosphate batteries, Wang Chuanfu picked up a vial of battery fluid and drank it. It worked. Berkshire invested $230 million for a 10% stake in the company. Charlie Munger described Wang as a combination of Thomas Edison and Jack Welch, something like Edison in solving technical problems, and something like Welch in getting done what he needs to do. I have never seen anything like it. That was the moment BYD stopped being a Chinese battery company and started becoming a global story. And the arrogance that made Wang drink battery fluid in front of billionaires, the absolute certainty in his own vision, would carry BYD to heights no one predicted, including Elon Musk. In 2011, Elon Musk laughed at BYD during a Bloomberg interview. "Have you seen their car?" Musk said. "I don't think it's particularly attractive. The technology is not very strong. And BYD as a company has pretty severe problems in their home turf in China. I think their focus is, and rightly should be, on making sure they don't die in China." BYD did not die in China. It conquered it. The company's secret weapon was a bet that the rest of the world's automakers refused to make. While many battery manufacturers were shifting away from lithium iron phosphate chemistry due to concerns over energy density, BYD promoted LFP as a safer alternative with competitive performance. In 2020, BYD introduced the Blade battery, a structural LFP battery that could pass a nail penetration test without catching fire, while competitors' batteries exploded in the same test. It was the kind of engineering breakthrough that doesn't make headline, but changes industries. BYD has since become the world's largest manufacturer of plug-in electric vehicles. By 2023, automotive business accounted for over 80% of its revenue. For 2024, It reported annual revenue of 777.1 billion yuan, $106.4 billion, a 29% increase from 2023. BYD surpassed Tesla in total electrified vehicle sales in 2022 and became the world's largest seller of battery electric vehicles in 2025. The company that Musk had laughed at was now outselling him globally. In the fourth quarter of 2023, BYD sold 526,409 fully electric vehicles against Tesla's 484,507. The laughing stopped. As of September 2024, BYD employed 900,608 people, including 104,003 in research and development. It had become China's largest private sector employer. Its valuation approached $1 trillion at its peak. The rags to riches story of the orphaned kid from Anhui who drank battery fluid in front of Buffett had produced one of the most extraordinary corporate rises in modern history. And then BYD made the bet. The bet was this: BYD decided it could win the Chinese EV market, the global EV market, and the future of transportation not by building the best car, but by building the cheapest car fast enough to destroy every competitor who tried to follow. It was a price war strategy deployed at a scale the automotive industry had never seen. BYD began slashing prices relentlessly. It used its vertical integration, controlling everything from lithium mining to battery cells to finished vehicles, to undercut rivals on cost in ways that companies dependent on outside suppliers simply could not match. It launched product after product after product: sedans, SUVs, luxury brands, budget brands, hybrids, pure electrics. In the first 3 quarters of 2025, the average price cut of new energy vehicles across the Chinese market reached 10.8%. BYD was the engine driving that number. The strategy worked brilliantly, and then it worked against them. The price war BYD ignited did not just damage competitors, it damaged BYD. When you are selling millions of cars at margins thin enough to be measured in fractions of a percent, the only way to stay profitable is to keep growing volume. Stop growing, and the math collapses. Every cost-cutting decision made to preserve margin at lower prices shows up eventually in a door panel, in a battery seal, in a software glitch, in a recall. Videos circulating online show angry consumers pointing out alleged cost-cutting practices. This is our so-called domestically made, leading new energy vehicle, one owner says. The door panels are plastic, the fenders are plastic, and the inside is filled with foam. The quality crisis had arrived, and it arrived at the worst possible moment. BYD's recall history in 2025 tells a story of quality control struggling to keep pace with production ambition. It started in January 2025. BYD recalled approximately 7,000 Fang Chengbao Bao, 5 plug-in hybrid SUVs, citing fire hazards, 7,000 vehicles with a fire risk. That was manageable. Companies handle small recalls all the time. Then came October. BYD conducted its largest recall to date, involving more than 115,000 Tang and Yuan Pro models due to design and battery-related safety issues, including design flaws and potential fire hazards linked to battery installation defects. On a company whose entire identity was built on being the world's best battery manufacturer, the problems went deeper. Then came BYD's third major recall of 2025, 88,981 Chin Plus plug-in hybrids over battery pack quality issues. The affected vehicles were produced between January 2021 and September 2023. The issue stems from manufacturing inconsistencies in the power battery packs. In extreme cases, the vehicles cannot operate in pure electric mode at all. Read that again. Battery consistency, issues spanning nearly 3 years of production. A car that cannot operate in electric mode, sold by the company that calls itself the world's electric vehicle champion. This recall brought BYD's 2025 total past 210,000 vehicles in 1 year from a company that had staked its entire global reputation on the safety and reliability of its battery technology. This was not one bad batch. Battery consistency issues spanning nearly 3 years of production isn't a one-off manufacturing glitch. It's a systemic failure in quality assurance. The speed of scaling had outpaced the rigor of the systems designed to maintain quality at that scale. The arrogant bet that you could grow fast enough to win before the cracks showed was losing. On October 17, 2025, at an extraordinary shareholders meeting, BYD chairman Wang Chuanfu acknowledged that domestic sales had declined. He cited reduced technological leadership compared with previous years and unresolved user pain points, such as slow charging performance in low temperatures. The man who had once drank battery fluid to prove his company was different was now standing in front of shareholders, admitting the company had fallen behind. The recall crisis was not happening in isolation. It was colliding with the financial deterioration that had been building for months. BYD's third quarter financial report showed revenue of 195 billion yuan, about $27.1 billion, down approximately 3% year-on-year. Net profit attributable to shareholders fell to 7.82 billion yuan, a sharp decline of 32.6%. Net cash flow from operating activities for the first three quarters totaled 40.8 billion yuan, down 27.42% year-on-year. These are not rounding error. A 32.6% collapse in net profit is a company in serious trouble. Cash flow down 27% means the actual cash the business generates from selling cars is shrinking dramatically, even as revenues nominally held up. The business model was degrading. In the second quarter of 2025, BYD's quarterly profit fell for the first time in more than 3.5 years. Net profit totaled 6.4 billion yuan, down 29.9% from the same period in 2024. October sales dropped 12% from a year earlier to 441,706 vehicles, the second straight month of declining sales. BYD lost its position as China's top-selling automaker to state-owned SAIC Motor. Let that land. BYD, the company that had built its entire identity around being China's undisputed EV king, lost the title of China's top-selling automaker to a state-owned competitor it had spent years dismissing as legacy industry. Domestic sales, nearly 80% of BYD's total production, fell for the fourth month in a row. The company has since lowered its annual sales target by up to 16%, cutting projections from 5.5 million to 4.6 million vehicles, a 16% reduction in its own sales target. That is not a small adjustment. That is a company telling the world it was wrong about how fast it could grow, and the world, including Warren Buffett, was listening. In August 2022, Berkshire began to reduce the 225 million share position it had purchased in 2008 for $230 million. That followed a 41% jump in the value of the position to $9 billion. For 3 years, Buffett sold gradually, which is normal. You take profits, you rebalance. It didn't mean the story was over. Then, in September 2025, the filing came. According to a 10Q form for Berkshire's energy arm, filed for the period ending June 30th, 2025, the Buffett-led company had reduced its stake to zero from his first purchase in September 2008 until the exit. The stock had risen more than 4,500%, giving Berkshire billions in profits. Berkshire's 17-year investment generated a 3,890% return. By any measure, it was one of the greatest investments in Berkshire's history, and Buffett still left. BYD shares hit a Warren Buffett-sized iceberg after the exit was revealed. Shares fell sharply on the news. When Charlie Munger had described Wang Chuanfu as a combination of Thomas Edison and Jack Welch, that description carried enormous weight. It told the investment world that BYD was not just another Chinese manufacturer, it was a generational company, a company worth holding forever. Buffett's exit said the opposite. It said, the story has been told, the return has been collected. What comes next is someone else's risk. Buffett has said he felt he could find things to do with the money that he would feel better about. In the language of Warren Buffett, that is about as direct a statement of concern as you will ever get. Here is the trap BYD walked into. The price war it started at home was destroying its domestic margin, and the international expansion it needed to compensate was being blocked at every border. BYD was excluded from the US market entirely and faced substantial European tariffs. The United States had imposed tariffs that made Chinese-built EVs effectively non-competitive on price. Lawmakers introduced legislation proposing tariffs of 125% on Chinese-made cars. The world's largest automotive market was closed. BYD's own executive vice president, Stella Li, publicly stated, "We don't need to enter the US market. We've got a lot of opportunities to become a great company with the many markets outside of the US." That statement was designed to sound confident. It read like a company making peace with being locked out of the second-largest car market on Earth. No serious global automaker in history has accepted permanent exclusion from the United States and remained a true global player. In Europe, the EU imposed substantial tariffs on Chinese EVs, while simultaneously simultaneously welcoming Chinese manufacturers to build local production facilities. BYD is building a factory in Hungary. It is scouting Spain. It is trying to manufacture its way around a trade wall. But building factories in Europe costs money, takes time, and produces cars at higher cost than Chinese factories, which means the price advantage that made BYD devastating in its home market becomes significantly diminished in the markets it needs most. As late as 2024, 87% of BYD's new energy vehicles were sold in China. 87%. For a company that calls itself a global EV empire, that is an extraordinary concentration of dependence on a single market, a market that is now generating declining profits, declining sales, and a brutal domestic price war that BYD itself ignited. The bet that BYD could dominate globally by first conquering China was always going to require international markets to absorb the growth. And one by one, those markets were closing the door. There's a specific kind of arrogance that destroys companies. Not the arrogance of stupidity. Wang Chuanfu is not a stupid man, but the arrogance of past success. The certainty that because you were right before, you will be right again. That because the bet worked once, a bigger version of the same bet will work now. BYD has made this mistake at scale. The price war was an arrogant bet. The assumption was that BYD's cost advantages were durable enough, deep enough, and wide enough to outlast every competitor it was fighting. That NIO, XPeng, Li Auto, Leap Motor, Xiaomi, a dozen well-funded government-backed Chinese EV startups would break before BYD did. The competition in the Chinese automobile market has reached a white-hot stage. The overall profit of the Chinese automobile industry in 2024 was 462.3 billion yuan, a year-on-year decrease of 8%. Everyone is losing. The price war is not producing a winner. It is producing an industry-wide destruction of profit. The quality compromise was an arrogant bet. The assumption that you could scale from hundreds of thousands of vehicles per year to millions, cut costs at every level to maintain competitiveness in a price war, and still deliver the quality standards your brand had promised. Quality concerns have become difficult to deny. Wang Chuanfu himself acknowledged reduced technological leadership compared with previous years. The global expansion plan is an arrogant bet. BYD is targeting up to 1.6 million vehicle sales outside China in 2026, almost doubling its projected overseas volume. This is a company that can barely stabilize its home market, announcing it will double its international footprint in 1 year, while building new factories, while managing recall crises, while posting declining profits, while its most famous investor has just walked out the door. The confidence that built BYD is the same confidence that is now blinding it to the scale of what it faces. There is a historical symmetry worth pausing on. In 2011, Elon Musk laughed at BYD. He questioned their technology, their attractiveness, their future. The arrogance of his dismissal was breathtaking, a dismissal of a company that would go on to outsell him globally just 12 years later. But in 2025, BYD faces its own version of the Musk problem, not a laughing competitor, something worse. A market that has grown skeptical, investors who are leaving, customers who are angry, a government quietly pushing back against the price war strategy, and an international wall that no amount of factory building can fully dismantle. BYD grew from a maker of mobile phone batteries to one of the biggest electric car companies on the planet. BYD dethroned Tesla in the fourth quarter of 2023 as the top EV maker. That achievement is real. It is historic. It is extraordinary. But dethroning a competitor and sustaining that lead are two different challenges. Tesla stumbled politically and reputationally under Musk's public persona, which helped BYD. That window will not stay open forever. And while BYD was celebrating the throne, the cracks in its own foundation were already spreading. BYD's aggressive expansion made it the world's largest EV manufacturer, but speed came at a cost. When you're pushing production volumes to meet 5.5 million annual delivery targets while slashing prices to fend off domestic rivals, something has to give. For BYD, it's been quality control. That sentence is the whole story. You can have scale, you can have speed, you can have low prices, but you cannot have all three at the same time indefinitely, without the math eventually forcing a compromise on one of them. BYD chose to compromise on quality, and that compromise is now extracting its price. As of late 2025, BYD has not collapsed. Be precise about that. It is still the world's largest EV manufacturer by volume. It still has 900,000 employees. It still has Warren Buffett's 3,890% return as evidence that its core story delivered extraordinary value. But the trajectory is unmistakable. Net profit down 32.6% in Q3 2025. Cash flow from operations down 27.42%. Domestic domestic sales declining for 4 consecutive months, annual targets slashed by 16%. The company's chairman publicly acknowledging reduced technological leadership. Berkshire Hathaway sold its entire stake after 17 years, generating a 3,890% return on a $230 million investment. The man who called BYD amazing decided the amazing part was over. The recall wave exposes the difference between building cars fast and building them right. As China's EV market enters a brutal consolidation phase, quality could separate survivors from casualties. BYD has the resources to survive this. It has the technology. It has the scale. It has the government backing that no purely private company can match. BYD's rise has been inextricably linked to Beijing's protection and support. Without Beijing's backing, BYD wouldn't be the global powerhouse it is today. But here's what Beijing cannot fix: the trust of customers who bought cars with battery defects, the credibility of a brand that built itself on battery safety and is now issuing recall after recall over battery failures, the confidence of international markets that are already skeptical of Chinese technology companies and now have fresh evidence of quality problems. Those things are rebuilt slowly, painfully, one car at a time. Wang Chuanfu is one of the most remarkable industrialists of the modern era. What he built from a $300,000 loan and 20 employees to a company that employs 900,000 people and outsells Tesla globally is genuinely extraordinary. Do not let the downfall narrative erase that. But the lesson of BYD is the lesson of every company that has confused dominance with invincibility. The price war was not a strategy. It was a gamble. The bet was that BYD's cost advantages were structural and permanent, that competitors would break before the margin compression became fatal, that the market would reward volume over value indefinitely. That bet is now failing. The quality compromise was not inevitable. It was a choice. A company with $30.88 billion invested in R&D in the first half of 2025 alone had the resources to maintain quality standards. What it did not have was the organizational discipline to prioritize quality over volume when the two came into conflict. Speed won, quality lost, and customers are now living with the consequences. The international arrogance was not a strength, it was a vulnerability. We don't need to enter the US market, BYD's executive said. That statement will age badly. Every serious global automaker in history has needed the United States. Accepting permanent exclusion from the world's most profitable car market and calling it a strategic choice is not confidence. It is denial, dressed as ambition. BYD built a $1 trillion empire by betting that the future of transportation was electric, that batteries were the key, and that speed and scale could overwhelm every obstacle. On the first two bets, Wang Chuanfu was absolutely right. The future of transportation is electric. Batteries are the key. On the third bet, that speed and scale could substitute for quality, trust, and sustainable margins. The market is delivering its verdict, and the verdict is not favorable. The man who drank battery fluid to prove he was different built a company that forgot the most important thing that made it different. The battery actually had to work.